Hello everyone and welcome to the Forge Within podcast, where we have real people telling real stories about how mental health has changed their lives, and hopefully together we can start breaking the stigma around mental health. So today's conversation is about something that often goes unseen to a lot of people: how long-term physical pain can quickly shape mental health, identity and the nervous system. So today we've got Emma Moseley, and her story isn't just about endometriosis. I think I got that right. I like to say the word. Or diagnosis. It's about what happens when someone spends a year surviving inside a body that isn't being listened to. So what I'd like to do is just introduce you to Emma. So how are you today, Em?
I'm great, thank you.
Fabulous. Have you had a nice day?
It hasn't been too bad, yeah. How's yours been?
All right, good. Yeah, busy, but really excited to do this podcast episode with you, because I know when we've gone through it, and you sent me over your story, and it really gave me a good insight into what you have experienced. I think you'll become a really good role model to a lot of people who are battling this, and a lot of people, and they don't make it well known. So I think it's just going to be a really, really interesting story from your perspective. So we'll get into questions and start flowing, but I can't wait.
Thank you.
That's no problem at all. So what we're going to do, we're going to split the kind of talk up into different kind of aspects. I've got a few questions and we'll just let it run organically and see where the conversation takes us.
No worries.
So question number, what I want to ask you to start with is, when did you first realize that this wasn't just a physical pain that you were going through, but something that was affecting your mental health as well?
There wasn't a single moment, really, that I suddenly thought, oh, this is mental health. It was much quieter than that, you know. Kind of crept in over time. I was 13, so young, and I didn't have the language, really, to tell anyone what was happening internally to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, especially when I'm so young. I look at like my experience from when I was young with my mental health, and when we're trying to reach out to different people and trying to find the common ground between being an advocate and trying to find them, and no one's actually around. It's got to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, very difficult. And I suppose back when I was growing up, mental health was a bit of a taboo. You know, no one talked about it. And especially suffering with women's problems, you know, it was kind of, you know, brushed off as it was just one of those things. So yeah, it was very difficult to navigate.
Yeah. In regards of advocates around you, did you ever have the conversation with any of your friends or anything? Were they going through similar problems, or was it you being more reserved because you didn't want to talk to anyone about it?
I didn't know what was going on, so I isolated myself, never really spoke about it. Didn't really know if anybody was suffering with it either. I just thought it was me. Yeah, so I isolated myself basically. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's got to have a big impact then on your like identity as a young person as well. So that chronic pain that you were experiencing from a really, really young age, how did that like shape your sense of identity as a young person, only being 13 years of age?
I just knew it wasn't right from the start, you know. It wasn't just like a mild discomfort. This was crippling pain that left my body feel like it was at war with itself. So trying to deal with that, becoming a teenager and finding my place in society, was just overwhelming. Yeah, it was hard.
No, I can imagine. Like, I'm a man, obviously, but you hear an awful lot of what lady women and girls go through from a young age as well, and I can't imagine what this impact of endometriosis, of what that does then to someone with such who's very young. They need to mature themselves, trying to discover the world as well, and then they start thinking, well, why me? Why is this happening to me? And when we self-isolate ourselves, then that's got to be even more difficult, because you're not integrating with people. You start your social battery is non-existent because you don't want to speak to anyone, and then you start having these thoughts. Did you the reason I'll ask the next question is because from a really, really young age, I was developing that kind of really negative self-image of myself, my mental health and everything. Did you have any, and I was having suicidal thoughts at the age of like 11 as well, when all that pain was going through and you could see that you weren't, even though you believed you weren't the same, even though that's not what it is. But when you felt that way, did you have them kind of feelings from a really young age as well?
Not so much the feelings. I just knew that my body just felt unsafe. I didn't know what was going on internally. You know, and your mind just adapts to what you're dealing with. So I sort of normalized everything, but thought I was on my own. That thought I was the only person who was suffering with it. I didn't see any of my friends around me suffering. Yeah, I just felt so alone and didn't know if there was anywhere that I could turn to talk about it.
Mm. I think that's when we look at support groups and everything now, especially within mental health. There's so many support groups out where we can actively go and find advice. We've got the internet, which is a massive thing where we can look at internet groups as well. We didn't have that when we were younger.
No.
So it makes the entire conversation really, really difficult to get our heads around, really, about what it was like before. Because again, there's people listen to this podcast who are in their 18s, 19s, sometimes early 20s, and their experience of this is a lot different to what we went through because we didn't have them services back 30 or 25, 30 years ago. They just weren't there. So it's fab to see where we've come from, but it still doesn't excuse the impact of those services had on us now. And it's how we manage and navigate that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that was giving me the drive to help people, to make them feel that it's okay, that it's normal to be feeling as bad as they are, but there is support out there to help them. Because I didn't have it as a teenager growing up. I just want to be there for someone, even if it's just that one person, as you keep saying. If you can help that one person, then that's amazing.
Yeah, and I suppose when we look at it as well, we look at language when we're younger, and I look at the way that I can communicate. Last night, my son was getting himself in a real, real emotional state because he didn't want to go to school disco because his tics were going to play up even more, and he kept saying to me, I'm really anxious, I'm anxiety. Now, I don't think it was anxiety. I think it was overstimulation. But then he doesn't have those language skills, even though we're working on him, to identify how he truly feels in them moments.
Yeah. It's hard. It's just like you're stuck in this frame of mind and you can't really explain it, but it's still happening to you and you do feel trapped.
Mm. And I think like it's for you as well, for very, very early on, your body was already teaching you something that wasn't right, but you didn't have the language to actually identify what the problem was. And that in itself then is even more difficult because you haven't got the services, you don't have the language, you don't have the support network around you. So you were just left, well, I'm on my own, that must have been so scary at the time.
Yeah, because I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know what was right. People didn't talk about periods. It was a bit like, oh, you can't be talking about that. And especially the older generations, it was like something women just got on with, And it was extremely hard to not know if it was right or wrong. Was this pain a normal thing? Did everyone go through this? It was lots of questions.
No, I bet you just when you've got all them questions and you don't know where to turn to. I talk a lot about loneliness as well, and loneliness can be very, very hard when we're talking about anything to do with mental health or problem we're trying to discover, trying to navigate, and yeah, it's got to be difficult. But the next thing I want to try and ask you another question is when it's repeatedly dismissed over and over and over, what was happening to you mentally?
I just felt I was I wasn't worth it. No one's listening to me. So what's the point of even bringing it up? No one's going to believe me. Do they even understand what's going on? Is it all in my head? There was a million questions going around and around in my head. And going back to my school days, missing so much school, not being around my peers. It was just, I suppose I was surviving rather than growing up.
Mm.
It was a lot of missed, friendships. The pain dictated my energy, my concentration and my confidence. It was just constant pain, just feeling unwell, feeling different. I felt different.
So who do you, when you were going through all that, if we're going to look at like dismissal, doubt, and like for your own self, it's like that internal like gaslighting that we're doing to ourselves as well. Where do you put any blame in anyone around you or the services attached to you? So because for me, when I come back from Thailand, when I went to the mental health crisis team, they basically kind of dismissed me and said, "What do you want to do? There's nothing we can do for you." And my mother was left just for me to be pacing around like a wild animal for 2 years, and it was horrific. So at the time, I put an awful lot of blame in the mental health system because they didn't. And from a young age, if I go all the way back to when I was 11, when I was suffering with my mental health all the way back then, and they dismissed it as being a brain tumor, put me through all the scans, but didn't actually sit down and say what's actually going on. I hold an awful lot of blame behind the mental health services at the time because they didn't, for me anyway, they didn't actively do what they should have done, I think, or investigated fully, even though I know they're incredibly busy, the mental health services, but that's how I felt. So for you, with having that kind of dismissal did you have any examples of you went to get help and then they kind of dismissed you and then that sunk into you doubting yourself, as you just said then, you doubted yourself, is it actually true? And then that gaslights a situation where you then, from going on a baseline of, I've got something wrong with me, I'm going to go and ask someone for help, there's nothing wrong with you, to then, there's nothing, actually, I believe there's nothing wrong with me, even though I feel that way. And then you start panicking, thinking of all these other things, because again, the mind then just works, it just goes into overdrive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it felt like my whole body was working against me. I went to the GP. They just said, it's period pain. Just get on with it, take paracetamol. But it was much more than that. Paracetamol wouldn't even touch the pain. I used to faint, heavy bleeding, at 13 years of age, not knowing if this was right, if anybody else was going through this. Was this normal? I just questioned myself constantly. But then because the GP said it was okay, then I took his word for it.
It sounds all too familiar. And when we're on this kind of platform, I try not to target any services and everything, but I can fully understand that at the point of, I've had conversations with people, say for instance, medication. They've been given medication and it doesn't work for them. Now, instead of going back to the GP and having the conversation and saying, well, this ain't working, we automatically look at GPs as being the best doctors in the world. They know everything. Yeah. When really, my relationship with my GP is really good because it's a working relationship. If it isn't working, I'm struggling, then I'll go there and talk. If I don't feel comfortable with it, I'll go and tell them. But when you're young, when you add this in now, right? When you're young, it's unheard of, really, of people going through that. There's a lot. I would imagine now that there's an awful lot more traction and awareness around endometriosis, which is, am I right in saying that? Is there a lot more services
Absolutely,
out there?
Yeah, there's a lot more people educated about, endometriosis, adenomyosis. They all clued up, and like I said, it's the support groups and lots more people talking out about it, which has helped greatly. But I think with the GPs, I think that people like me going to the doctors now know more about these conditions than the actual GPs. So I know I've gone into my GP telling them what to do next because I have done all the research. I have educated myself for years and years and years.
And that just shows the kind of progression of how we can use technology in a good way. There's all different platforms, like I said, as support groups. So whereas we thought that we were on our own, we're no longer on our own again. But GPs, for me, they're general practitioners. They know they're there. They give the signs, they see the symptoms, and they refer out. They're still got a massively important job in the
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to like these things where it can impact their mental health, it's difficult then, because when someone's in crisis, you can refer out, but you're not dealing with the issue as a sort. You've got to wait for referrals. And that's if you have a good GP that says to you, I believe you, let's investigate more. Now, in your circumstance, when they turn around and go, actually, there's nothing wrong with you, it's period pain, just get on with it and everything, you don't know, only you know and how that feels. So you can't compare your pain to anyone else, any of your friends' pain, because they can say, oh yes, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about an 8, and you turn around and go, well, I feel the same. So everyone's pain threshold and understanding of what pain is only their own perception anyway.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah, you can't judge that. You can't judge it on that, can you?
No, you can't judge. You cannot judge your own pain and your experiences off anything else. So again, I think that comes down to the kind of GP you go to, how empathetic they are, what experience they've had as well. And it's the same with therapists. I've experienced this with therapists. I've gone there and I feel, this doesn't feel right. I don't think this is going to suit me. But I've gone to other therapists where I feel like I'm speaking to my best friend. So I've stayed with them and I've worked through things. But it's difficult if you've only got like the one GP that you can go to.
Yeah, and back then it was, we're talking 30 years ago.
At what point then did you started having the pains and at 13, is that right?
Yeah, 13, yeah.
Yeah, 13. So at what point did you start questioning yourself rather than the system? Because you turn around and go in, how can I put this in a way? So you're looking at the system and saying, all right, the GPs are getting it wrong. This isn't something different. I know what it is. But then at what point then, how long after that, did you say to yourself, oh, maybe the GPs are right. Maybe this is all in my head. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. Was there any point at all during that early life? Because normally that's where, when we look at like the Ford's method, that's where the denial kicks in then, because your denial and your own perception of things is being reinforced then by external factors like doctors, parents, friends. So then, unless you've got a really strong mental ethic of, no, this is exactly what it is, we can easily be influenced by people around ourselves as well to actually believe that what we think is real isn't real, and 9 times out of 10 that's wrong anyway.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it was probably after seeing that doctor when I was 13, and he said it was all in my head, basically it's a period, get on with it. I believed him, he's a professional, he's the doctor, he's the one you go to when you're not well, when you're in pain. So yeah, I probably started questioning myself right from that point.
It's sad, isn't it, when we build their relationships up, and you'd like to think when it's something as private as going through the menstrual cycle, and something that which is already for a 13-year-old, when you're growing up and going through those hormones and trying to understand your body, and then I never went through it. I haven't got any children. I've got children. I haven't got any girls either, so I can't begin to imagine what that was like for you on that load as well, especially when you go to a professional when they're supposed to be there and they're not giving you advice. They're just saying nothing wrong, it's just period pain. Yeah, that can. Do you think, just to jump into the couple of years, do you find then, because you had that bad experience with the GP, which impacted you physically and mentally as well. Did that leave a lasting impact on you further on within the health professionals?
Absolutely. I've been let down for years, back and forth, specialists, GPs, and no one ever knowing what was actually wrong with me. And again, endometriosis is a lot more understood now, and it wasn't back then. But I never stumbled upon someone who actually knew enough about it to say it could be this, really.
Yeah. It's really, really sad because this is a pure example of from a health setting, how not being able to diagnose something or the ability, I would imagine, to be emotionally intelligent enough at the time to say that we need to take this 13-year-old's feelings into consideration, where there's something not quite right, we need to further test. But it's a bit like treating you like every other patient who comes in at your age, that there's period pain and you're just being over-exaggerating.
Yeah. And it could have been, I didn't know, it could have been the case that was a period. That's how much pain you go through every month. So yeah, it was a crazy time. Crazy.
I can imagine. And what I'm hearing during this first part of the podcast is that the longer the pain went unvalidated, the more it turned inward into yourself. So when we have any sort of physical pain, there are people out there that I've spoke to that they believe what they become. So because you have all those negative feelings and thoughts, you start believing that, and then it's not just the misdiagnosis, it's the mental aspect of what comes with it. So the isolation, segregation, anxiety, depression, trust issues. It's just, the list goes on endlessly because it hasn't been cared for at the root cause of the problem.
Definitely. I spent many years beating myself up thinking, why is no one around me suffering like me? Is it me? Am I weak? Why can't I cope with it? I can't handle it.
Yeah, I get that. Because obviously how long did you suffer with endometriosis for?
27 years.
Wow. That is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see from my perspective of anxiety and the depression and everything, I've been suffering since the mental health's been bad for me since 2007, so I'm nearing up to 20 years coming up. But I've had mental health problems with how I perceive myself since I was 6. Don't get wrong, I suffer with anxiety every single day. But that's not, I can manage that because I put things in place. It's not pain, it's fear. So it's a different sort of perception when we talk about if you're in physical pain. So to be in physical pain or to suffer with that for 27 years is just, that's a bit of that's a bad one. That is, I can't imagine what that felt. And so this leads into this really good question I can follow up on that then is, when you were living in that kind of anticipation that pain was constant, how did that affect your anxiety and your overall nervous system, so your stress levels and energy levels and so on?
It shaped everything, Sam. How I saw myself, how I related to others, how I believed if I was capable of things. Being in constant pain from such a young age, you just feel unwell, you just feel different. It's just something that was internalized, I never spoke out about it. It was just constantly going around in my head. Yeah, it was just, I just didn't know what it was.
I suppose it's that uncertainty then, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And looking back at it now, knowing what I know now, absolutely, it was anxiety. But I didn't know what it was then. None of my friends had anxiety. None of my family had anxiety. It wasn't a word that was talked about.
And it's really interesting because when we talk about like anxiety now, as much as I don't want to say it's a bit of a buzzword, everyone uses the word we're suffering with anxiety. It used to be.
Mm?
I've got someone coming off an older generation, he's saying like when I was back in the 60s, it was,
Yeah.
he's got bad nerves.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Living on
no,
his nerves.
he's
Yeah.
living on his nerves, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was anxiety back then. So anxiety's been around for an awful long period of time, but it
Yeah.
shows the traction and direction that we've changed from not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to understand what it is, to actually saying, I'm feeling a bit anxious. My only worry is that we've gone totally the opposite way now, where we're on the other end of the spectrum, where everyone's anxious. No, if they have one bit of anxiety, then that's a bad thing. Anxiety is a normal chemical reaction in the body to anything. It's a safety response from fight, flight, or freeze. So you're meant to use it. Some people, but it all depends if it's uncontrollable.
Yeah,
And
there's a
that's,
good level of anxiety to have daily, isn't it? You know, you've got to have that to survive, I suppose.
but in regards of yours, with the anticipation of the pain, that
Oh,
anxiety was obviously crippling.
off the scale, absolutely off the scale. Yeah, it just dictated everything: my energy, my concentration, my confidence. I just wanted to be normal, and this thing inside me was just taking over me, physically and mentally.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the word normal as well, it's such a heavy loaded word, normal, because we go,
Yeah.
I want to be normal, I want to be this, I want to be that, but there's no such thing as normal at all. It's
No.
normally it's how we perceive our life around other people. So you look at, I don't know, that's why social media could be hard sometimes. In my talks, I always start with a picture of me and my family and saying, what do you see? And you see happiness and love and everything, but you don't see what's going on behind the veil, as we say. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm.
it's, I think an awful lot of people suffer with anxiety back then, but it just wasn't spoken about at all.
No. No.
Your nervous system must have been absolutely ruined from it as well. Must have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, just living in constant fear, I suppose, anticipation. When is it going to happen? When it does happen, I know it's going to be painful. I can't deal with that pain, but I don't know what to do about it. I've gone to the GP. They've told me just to take a paracetamol. That doesn't work. So it must be me. And it's that vicious cycle again, you know, it's just goes round and round and round. And it always comes back, did come back to me. It's got to be me. It's just me.
So with the dysregulation then of your everyday life, because I can imagine you wasn't able to live a normal functioning life because there were certain things that would level your day. Like, how did that affect, like, one, your work in life, your education? Let's start with your education, and then how we moved then into your work then, and then daily functioning in between. And see if you can just talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I love school. I had a lovely group of friends. I was friendly to everyone, you know. I just liked being social. But school became difficult. You know, I would pretend to be ill because I didn't want to talk about it. I always used to say, "Oh, it's my throat. I don't feel very well. I got a sore throat." But really, it was my issues, my stomach issues. You know, my periods. So yeah, it probably all started from there. Um, you know, there was lots of school missed, lots of lessons missed. You know, my exams. And I suppose opportunities passed me by. And looking back on it now, if I wasn't in that pain, then maybe I wouldn't be where I am now.
Do you know, that's a fascinating thing to say, because I always say that everything, and that's probably where the forge come from as well, everything that you go through makes you a stronger person anyway. And I think
Mm-hmm.
if you live in regret of what had happened before, that will define what you're going to be. So it's one of those things of, you can either turn around and go, yeah, I miss my childhood, I miss them opportunities. However, it's put me in this moment right now where I can be where I am. So from my perspective, would I go back to Thailand again? Yeah. Do I regret that? No, because the things that I've seen out there shaped me for who I am now. Yes, there's been an incredible amount of suffering that has taken place over time, but there's been there's been a massive amount of good things that have come from it. And even like now, doing the podcast and having people like yourself on and all the other opportunities, I wouldn't be able to do this now. And that's the same as you. You now becoming an advocate.
I couldn't agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Sam. Being able to do what I do now or have done for the past 20 years, working in education, working with vulnerable children, I would never have been able to do that. Only that I had my suffering to push me forward, to be determined, to be that person for them. And like I said, it shaped me as a person, but in a good way.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Did you ever suffer then with? So do you know if with the way that your mental health never affected your everyday functioning? No, like people pleasing. So if like for me, I had to go. If someone said to me, "Right, Sam, we're going out now for the day. We're going to go and do this," but I knew that it was negatively impact my mental health, so I actively put on a brave face, put the mask on to show that I was normal, as we say, even though I don't agree that there's no such thing as normal. But I would put myself in situations where I didn't feel comfortable. I knew it was going to upset me. And as a result, then I kind of felt really angry towards myself because I didn't have that confidence to say, well, no, I'm not doing it. And even though I know it was going to make me ill at the time, do you know what I mean? So did you ever have any moments where you didn't feel right and because you wanted to please people and you didn't want to let people down, you've done it anyway, but then you wish that you didn't, and you wish that you were more open about it when you were younger, or when in those times where where you were trying to please over and over?
I'm smiling because I absolutely have had those experiences. I was a people pleaser. And looking back, I can see it, plain as day. I didn't know at the time what I was doing. Anything to keep everything calm, everything under control, just to be there for that person, to make them feel good. Because it hid my insecurities, it hid my truth, and it kind of helped me survive, I suppose, by putting everyone else's feelings and thoughts before my own.
Yeah, I think when we put anyone's feelings before our own, I've said this before on you, that the most important person in my life is me. It's no one else. Because if I can't be the best version of myself, I can't be the best version for anyone else. But how many times do we put our other people's feelings or other people's thoughts before our own, and as a result, we suffer from it? So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I think it's something I've learned in later life. But yeah, I can definitely see it in me as a 13-year-old. Definitely.
What did, with all, I can imagine that, well, I can't imagine, just by going off what you were saying at the moment, living in that amount of pain for a long time, what did the mental exhaustion and burnout look like to you?
It would just floor me. It wasn't constant pain in the beginning. It was very like around my period. So it'd be like 3 to 7 days, and it would just totally wipe me out. I would go to school. When I went to school, I'd come home and I'd go straight to bed, and I would sleep the clock around and sometimes get up the next morning. Just didn't have no social life. Just absolutely wiped me out. And I always made excuses to my friends that I didn't feel very well because I had a sore throat, or I was busy, I was doing something else. because I didn't really want to tell him the truth. I suppose I didn't want to be judged for being different.
It's interesting, isn't it? As you're being, I'm going to go off for one now, being a parent then, because I know now that you're a parent, and we'll talk more about that, but I just want to quickly jump in and jump straight back out, but feeling that you being open, the fact that you were scared because you'd be judged, I can relate an awful lot to that as well, because I know when I was in those situations where I could have talked about my mental health, are my friends going to look at me differently? Are they going to treat me differently? Am I a freak? There's no such thing as mental health. What hope is there? There's all these different things. As now that you're a mother, how do you protect? Because I do it with my kids by talking openly about my mental health and everything, about that it's good to understand how we are feeling, so we don't get in those situations where I feel judged for being the way I am, especially with my youngest now who has tics. That's a big one. We're going through the process of him being diagnosed now. Got to go private, so we think that it's Tourette's, which is, it's life changing, not just for him but for us, and how we help him and enable him. But the most important thing is to protect him. So, for your perspective, what lessons have you learned that you can pass on to your children?
Just to be open and honest. If there's any doubt in your mind, just ask, reach out. I suppose it's easier for kids, not easier, but more accessible for kids these days to find out what is the problem through the internet. You know, we didn't have that back in our day. We couldn't go to Dr. Google and ask what's wrong with me. I would just say to them, just tell me, and I will try my utmost to help you.
You should never feel judged or feel as if you can't be the person you wanted to be. As long as that person isn't harming anyone, then you can be what you want. That's how I take things. I got a few guests coming on now, and they're transgender and they're going through things. And it's really interesting to see how, when I spoke to them prior to when they come on the podcast, how they feel. At the beginning they were feeling judged, but how they've transitioned through that, the fact that they're proud of who they are now. So that's going to be really, really interesting. But I think us having conversations with our children that, look, there is no such thing as normal. Be open.
Yeah.
Just
And I feel proud when you say that, that I got 2 sons. So luckily they won't have to go through what I've been through. But they know exactly what I've been through. They know the names, the terminology, they know everything, you know. I got an 18-year-old and a 10-year-old, but they know about periods. They know about endometriosis. They know about adenomyosis. They know all the different things I've been through. But why shouldn't they know? You know, it's their mum at the end of the day. That's what have shaped me.
When did you get I'm assuming now you weren't diagnosed when you were younger. When did you get your diagnosis of endometriosis?
December 2023.
Do you know what I mean? That is absolutely insane. So what you, I'm not going to put your age away now. So you're thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to tell everyone my age. When you were 13, what was the waiting? So you suffering with the pains to then. So what year did you start suffering with the pains?
When I was 13.
Okay. We'll just leave it there then.
27 years. 27 years.
27. So we're talking like
you 20. Do the maths.
Yeah. So 27 years we're looking at in regards of
27 years from start to finish, yeah.
And that was by no end of you not trying to get a diagnosis. That was literally just pitfall after pitfall, pushback after pushback until
I had to pay private in the end to get the diagnosis. So yeah.
And we spoke earlier, it's just the damage that does in that period of time. I suppose, yeah. It's like I said, 27 years is a long time growing up, having children,
And it's just like, it becomes normal. It absolutely becomes normal. And until you have that diagnosis and you actually get the problem sorted or under control, you look back on your life and go, wow. Just wow. How did I do it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I think that just shows the strength and character of who you are and where you've come from and how far you've come when you look at that transitional period of having the pains at the age of 13 and then going all the way through then for 27 years. And I don't like I've never been a fan of putting labels on things and that was the one thing I was very cautious of around myself and around my youngest as well, trying to diagnose him. But after a period of time, when these things are not getting dealt with, there needs to be some formal diagnosis of what you're actually going through. So yes, some things are a lot more harder to discover than others. But for me, like, I'll ask you first, and then I'll reflect on myself. But how did that diagnosis in 2023? How did that affect you mentally?
Absolutely blew me away. It was like a mixture of emotions, really. I felt relief. I felt angry. I felt rage. I felt joy that someone has actually given a name to this. Yeah, it was a massive whirlwind of emotions.
And did being I can't get over the fact of you going through all of that and then being validated. You've had the diagnosis and everything you've had has totally been validated for what you've been through. And that's how I felt in 2018 when they said, oh, you've got PTSD. I'm like, but you've known all this for years and years and years and years, and only now you're giving me a formal diagnosis that I have PTSD and a general anxiety disorder. And I could have done an awful lot more research, because as soon as I had the diagnosis, I was then able to look at things of how you can improve PTSD, how you can manage your anxiety, so cut caffeine out and everything. So diagnosis is sometimes are really, really important, so people can have a bit more clarity behind what they can do themselves and to validate the emotions that they felt for such a long period of time.
Yeah, it was very, very overwhelming. Literally within 4 months of seeing the specialist, I had the first consultation. He'd basically told me it was endometriosis without even looking at anything, no tests or anything. So it's just finding the right specialist, I suppose. I had a MRI scan. Within 4 months, I had my hysterectomy, and I was completely out of pain for the first time in 27 years.
Where's it? Again, we look at I'm not going to say it's a letdown, but for 27 years to be in that pain, and within 4 months you're out because we went private. I know the NHS is in a current situation it is now, with how stretched and how thin it is. But under absolutely no circumstances should somebody wait in 27 years to have a formal diagnosis, and then in order to get one, be pushed in a situation to go and spend money privately to get that diagnosis. So that should have been picked up along, because it's the damage then from that negative experience, like we said earlier, the damage it does mentally to you then, that those scars are always going to be there. The mental scars will always be there. You've got to work on them. And I can imagine it's like that bit of collateral damage that you already got to carry with you all the time. I'm never going to get away from the fact that the baby died in my arms in Thailand. I'm never going to get away from the fact that I was bullied horrifically when I was younger. There's lots of other things that yet I haven't talked about in regards of my mental health, because I don't think there's a time and a place, and when it's all irrelevant. It's all relevant, but it's really difficult. It's difficult hearing this story from you, even though I'm a man and you're a woman, because I understand from a mental health perspective how being not believed, being mistreated by, I'd say, from a health perspective, that it's all in your head, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. And years of being misdiagnosed as well, Sam, I'd gone through specialists through the NHS and paid privately for specialists, and still none of them come up with the right diagnosis. So years of misdiagnosis, years of taking the wrong medications, thinking it was one thing and it was completely something different.
I suppose the best way to do it, which you are doing now, the way that you've changed your life around, the way that you've moved forward, that's just credit to you, how far that you've actually come. Because an awful lot of people, they would be in a situation where they would hold so much hate and resentment, and they would be their life mission to burn those feelings and those people to the ground, basically, to make sure their life is hell because they made your life hell. But again, that just shows what you're actually doing, your current role within life at the moment. So credit to you, really do.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That means a lot.
No. That's fine. When you did you have any therapy then post all that?
Pre-operation. Yeah, I wanted to do therapy for years. I've always been interested in it, but never really had that need to do it. So I thought, so the lead up to the operation, I thought now is the time. So I went to therapy and it absolutely changed my life.
In what way? Because there are people now who are in the situation that you are in, they've been let down, they're going through that process of endometriosis and they're trying to work out what this all looks like to them, and they're listening to you now thinking, well, this is exactly how I felt. In regards of understanding, doing that therapy and learning about trauma and the regulation of change and how that changed you, in what way did it help?
I suppose understanding that the mind and the body work together, that if one is failing, the other one's going to be having an effect. Learning that my experience, everything I was going through physically and mentally, had a detrimental effect on my nervous system. And just working my way through that with my therapist just helped me gain knowledge and understanding of why I was in this position and how to, and learning the tools to move forward. I think it was a great help, and I would recommend it to everyone.
That's really interesting to you, and this is why I said it the last 2 weeks as well. This is why this platform and this podcast, I hope, does really well, because it gives people the chance to come on and speak and talk about what works for them, and that's the whole point of lived experience. By creating platforms and avenues for people with lived experience to share their stories to help others in that scenario. And this is one way of doing it. There's lots of other ways of doing it, but this is why I hope, by putting your story up there, people with endometriosis get to listen to this and they go, right, I can follow that suit. And like you said, and we've said all along, you've only got to help one person. So if one person,
my
takes
advice would be,
first,
my advice would be, you know your own body better than any doctor. So if you feel that you have got something that's not quite right, you just stand by yourself and do justice for you.
And
don't suffer as long as I done.
No. It sounds like the diagnosis, it didn't give you just the answers. It gave you permission to trust yourself again, that you were validated and you could move forward.
Oh my God, it gave me a new lease of life, Sam. Just still in pain and complete traumatized by it all. It just gave me that new lease of life. It was like I'd been reborn. And that was even before the operation. So after the operation, there's no stopping me.
I know that. Definitely, I know that. So if we're looking then post-operation of how things have changed the last 2 years, if you were to compare yourself to that person you was during that 27 years to the person you are now on this podcast and doing the amazing things you are now, what's the difference?
It's validation. just having that, I'm not going crazy. This is real. It just spurred me on. It just gave me that, my spark back to know that it's not just all in my head. It's an actual real thing. But to learn from it and understand, to give me the confidence to be a better person. It's the difference, really, just the validation of the diagnosis, I suppose, and becoming this person I am today. It's released the person that was trapped inside.
Well, that kind of summarises where the entire conversation has gone, because even though we talk about the fact of the endometriosis and everything, from a mental health perspective, I think an awful lot of this talk has been around not being believed and how services let you down and how that leaves. So your advice to someone, if someone ever felt like they were losing their mind because they weren't believed, what would you want them to hear? What kind of advice would you say to them?
Believe in yourself. Don't let others influence your train of thought. If you think that there's something not right, physically or mentally, reach out, talk to people, because people have gone through it. People will understand. People won't judge.
Well said. That's a really, really good way to end that first part. Like I said to you, Emma, to go through the endometriosis and to wait that long period of time for, like, again, I keep saying the 27 years, which people just must be, when they listen to this, just shaking their heads going, wow. I don't really think people realise how lucky they are to get diagnosis in such a short period of time, like 3 to 4 years, but 27 years is insane. I can't imagine waiting 27 years for my mental health. I probably wouldn't be here if I hadn't been diagnosed with that and I had no clarity. I wouldn't have been here. So, yeah, kudos to you. What I'm interested in now is what you're doing now. But what I also want to touch on before we go into that, you talk about education. Children are not prepared for the current world we're in with mental health as well. What kind of things did you see in school that reinforced that idea that mental health is a big, big thing within schools?
Kids talk about it like it's a normal conversation, which is fantastic to see and hear, but also very sad that it is part of a normal conversation. Society is hard growing up in this day and age. Kids, I think they're quite hard on themselves through comparing themselves with others, peers, social media. Yeah. But it's good that they can talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely good you can talk about it. It just worries me when it comes to, like, education settings, how a lot of schools are very archaic in their approach of understanding. It's just about, like, results, when there's an awful lot more to be unpacked. Before, yes, it's always been hard, but now with social media, with how you can go on TV and everyone wants to watch, like, these celebrity programs. They all want to be like the celebrity. There's no individuality, how they struggle mentally as well. And again, if you've got a group of people who are really struggling with their mental health and they can't fit into a certain group, that impacts them again as well. And then they look at there's so much stuff out there at the moment that worries me in regards of not just school, but within young children as well. It really, really does. It's fabulous that a lot of them can talk, but there's a massive reason why suicide rates are on the high. And I said last week when I spoke to my son Lloyd about, I just wish that educational systems, which I think they are now to a certain degree, if they could just wake up and realise that this is really, really important to have an understanding of mental health. in lessons in school. For me, it's more important than algebra and learning 1 times 1. It just generally is. Understanding your own well-being and mental health for me is paramount to anything, because once you get that sorted, you can then deal with things later on in
Learning is
life.
key then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. But if you had a magic wand then, and I said you'd right, you could go in and you could change the educational system in any way to try and make things easier for children, what would you do?
I suppose you would wish that it helped. Well, parents would start it from a young age, talking about it, showing their children and, giving them an understanding of what mental health is. But working alongside their nurseries and schools, and I know it's introduced in primary school and they do touch on elements of it. But I definitely think there's a massive gap in the system that I suppose is failing young people.
Yeah, I think it is as well, because even though there's a lot of movement in regards of understanding a child's well-being, because the teachers are under stress from their headmasters, and then it just gets filtered down. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the people at the bottom, which are the kids, when it should be the other way around, the kids are the ones who were suffering because they are under pressure to get results, especially when you go to secondary school and they're actually sitting down and going, right, let's work through it. I'm not saying every educational system is like it. I'm not saying we can wrap kids in cotton wool. But what I am saying is that I think there just needs to be more educational needs to try and guide young adults and children into a world where they understand themselves and who they can go to and how they can communicate as well. So not just through text messages and all that stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, like I said, that homeschool link, I think that's going to make a massive difference, because you need parents on board. You need parents to understand why the children are acting or, not understanding the way that they are presenting. And I think if they create that link between home and school, I think it'll make it an easier transition to talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. Just to divert Ben back to where you are now, what kind of things are you doing every single day now to make sure that you are mentally, with your mental clarity in regards of being healthy and that new lease of life? What are you doing in your working life at the moment to make a difference? Because when I get to the end of the podcast, I love to have, when people listen to someone's story of where they've come from, it's really, really good to see where people are now and how they transverse through that. Yes, will be stories where people are still stuck at the moment, but it's really interesting for people to show that there is a journey and there is a path, and every step we're forging in a direction for a better you, for a better self. So, yeah, what are you doing currently at the moment, work-wise, to make that difference, and what things are you doing daily to help with your mental health?
So daily, I make sure I factor in time for me, doing my yoga, doing my meditation, just giving myself time, going out for a walk, having sunlight, eating a clean diet, is all helped. Spending time with the family, breaking up my day into sections where it's manageable so it doesn't overwhelm, but feeling amazing once I'm doing all those things. It's definitely helped, and having the energy to be able to complete my day without feeling exhausted, drained, in pain.
What are you? So what are you doing now in regards of work? Where are you? You've come from the school.
So I have moved from education into the community. A massive move, hasn't been an easy one, and I'm working within Blaenau Gwent, helping families become fitter and healthier physically, mentally, socially, and emotionally. And is the most fulfilling job I have ever, I don't even call it a job because I love it. It is the best experience connecting people together. It's just amazing.
No, and it's so, it's so nice to see where when we start like the conversations, we talk about like why we've come on here to talk about, you want to talk about endometriosis and the impact right in your body and sharing awareness. And sometimes you can start quite bleak in regards of bringing up them past memories. It's even in the tone of your voice, and even though we haven't got the video going up, you can see in your face the difference in your emotional happiness of just going, yeah, this is the best thing in the world. This is amazing. That just shows how when we have that personal validation, that belief in ourselves, we then get the confidence to go, right, I'm going to try this and go out there. And it changes everything. It does. It changes everything. I think that's why it's so important that health professionals and people around, when you gather that team or that network around you, that it's a positive network and it allows you to make them changes that can push you in a direction that is, yeah, where you are now. And for me, it's amazing when I hear these stories of people and seeing where they were and where they come from. It validates the fact of that I'm not the only one who's been through that, but it empowers me as well. Every single guest empowers me to keep going on my journey, to keep pushing, to find different people, to have these different stories. And your story is incredible. There's going to be people out there who will listen to this, who have suffered with endometriosis, are suffering with endometriosis, and then they've gone, right, it's been 27 years. However, those people that believe that they had no hope, they then have the hope because you've had the bravery to come on here, leave yourself vulnerable and talk about how it impacted you. And that's not an easy thing to do because I've been there with my mental health as well. So it's you're an incredibly brave person for coming on, and it shows in the work that you're doing, going out into the community and helping people with your projects and everything. And yeah, it's only going to get you in good stead, and you should be proud of yourself.
I'm getting there slowly. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. But now I'm feeling fit and well. I'm ready to give back. And I think it couldn't have been a better time than to start working in the community and giving people or helping people in their journeys. And that just fills me with joy.
That's amazing. And that's what we're here for. That's why we do what we do, and our caring natures like you are. And what I'm trying to do here as well, that's the difference. We want to make that change. We don't want anything back. We just want to make that change. We want to make a difference so people don't suffer, don't feel as if they're alone and they feeling judged. We just want people to feel valued enough to become the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been a really, I've been looking forward to this chat, and I know we fast tracked it because we were going to do it earlier on in the year, but I'm really glad that we've had the opportunity now to speak about this, because it's always it's amazing to hear things that I'll never experience. I'll never experience endometriosis. But I think it's very, very important as someone who wants to grow and understand the topic and understand people of how these things impact people as well. And you've carried yourself with an awful lot of dignity. You've spoken incredibly well and helped an awful lot of people. And like you said, even if it's just one person you help, then that's one less person who's going to feel as if they're alone tomorrow. So
absolutely.
I just want to say,
and I think, like, sorry for interrupting, but I think it's.
No.
Say that, you're a man and you'll never experience it, but you never know that, it affects men as well, as in your wives, your girlfriends, your daughters. It's not, although it impacts the woman's body, it can have that mental effect on, on males. It hasn't been easy for my husband, for my children, watching me go through this process. So it's good that everyone understands the disease, really.
No, I think that comes down to when we leave ourselves vulnerable around our loved ones, that them having a general understanding of how you are and what you're going through, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you more human and more relatable and understandable. It doesn't make you like Superman. So I had an incident 2 nights ago where, it's like life is busy and it's like trying to do all the things with the Forge Within, trying to become the dad, trying to go to the gym, trying to do the podcast, doing all these different things. My son was like, I'm hungry. I'm like, I just want 4 minutes to watch football. That's all I want. 4 minutes. That's it. I just want 4 minutes. I'm hungry. Just wait. Just wait 4 minutes. You're a bad dad. Whoosh, gone. Bah! Gone into craziness and everything. But then when I went upstairs and explained to him, I said, look, you need to realize that daddy struggles sometimes. And when I need that time to shut off. And in all fairness, and he's 11, he turned around, he went, sorry, daddy, I understand. Give me a kiss and it's fine. But if I had not gone upstairs to explain to him, that image of me losing my absolute tin with him, right, going mad, would stick with him, thinking that I'm a bad dad. But because I've gone upstairs and said, I need to have that time, respect how I feel sometimes, so then we can have the conversation after, he's learned from that, and then he'll be able to carry that lesson into his life as well.
Yeah, so, and it's about that open and honest, and show your vulnerabilities. Like you said, my kids and my husband, they knew exactly at what point to leave me alone, to just let me be, whether it be me suffering in pain or just not mentally with it. They picked up on the cues, and I think that was all about being open and honest and telling them how I felt.
No, again, I think it just shows, this conversation has just shown, even though you can be let down through life and be left and made feel like no one believes you, it only takes one moment of someone to believe and say, this is actually what it is. It justifies everything. And then you're able to feel validated. And then it's the importance then of those lessons that you've learned then about passing them on to show your vulnerabilities. And whoever comes on the podcast, just by coming on there, you lay down your shield and you take off your armor to show your vulnerabilities. And that's incredibly brave. Not just that you could do it in front of your family, but to come on you and do it is another thing altogether, because it's not just me and you having a conversation. It goes out to hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people who can pick it. Yeah. See, if you could see her face now, she's like, oh my God, this is mad. But this is why these...
You didn't tell me about this.
This is why this space is here for people to listen, to feel empowered, to learn. None of it's scripted. This is just having honest conversations. Hence why you probably hear us mumble on a few things. I do anyway, and I stutter and everything. But that's the important. Yeah, and that's the importance of this podcast. Is real. And when we talk about these things, we go through the emotions, we understand, we try to break things down, and then that way then we get a good, honest conversation. And for me, that's where it all starts. It starts with having these honest conversations with people like yourself, so you can pass on your knowledge to other people around. So, amazing.
Just to believe in yourself, that things will get better. Don't take people's word for things. If you think something is wrong, you keep pushing for it, and don't be like me and wait 27 years, because there's no need.
I love that. Don't wait. Take 3 points there. Don't wait. Believe in yourself and keep going. Never stop. Never surrender.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the Forge Within podcast this week. It's been a real honour to have you on, and I wish you, the family, and the stuff with work all the best in the future. I really do.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me.
No, that's no problem at all. And if there's anyone out there who's listened to this and you're interested in coming on the podcast is recorded remotely from your own home. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to come and visit me in person. You can do it with a cup of tea, as Emma's doing now. She's having a cup of tea, relaxing in the pajamas, which is lovely. And there's no video footage either. It's all audio footage. So if you don't want to be on the screen, you don't want to show your face, we can turn the camera off. And then when the footage goes out, it's literally just your voice. So if you want to come on the podcast, tell your story and be part of this movement, then please reach out to me and we can get that sorted and get it booked in. But until then, this has been the Forge Within podcast, where we have real people telling real stories about how mental health has changed their life. And hopefully together we can start changing the stigma around mental health. Goodbye everyone. Bye.